Yo, what's going on, everyone? It's your boy DLloyd. So just last week, the Arena Football League issued a statement that they will be ceasing operation from all of the 6 active teams in the AFL, and they're going to be trying to restructure the company and try to come back. Maybe they become a traveling league. I'm not quite sure, but they're going to try to come back. That's the last we heard from the AFL. Like I said, end of October, we heard that. But how did they get there, really? What's the story of the Arena Football League? And I will have to say it's definitely a confusing and interesting story, right, of the Arena Football League, because this is not the first time that the league was financially in trouble. Now, the league started off as a great idea, and it actually started in 1987. But before the league even got taken off, it was 1986 where they had to demonstrate to these networks, these television networks, that this was a league to be taken seriously. So what did they do before the league technically formed? They had to have a couple of test games. And who do they get to participate in these test games? Well, they got volunteers from college athletes. Yes, college athletes, free volunteers playing in a league. The AFL promised if this league works, if it takes off, you guys are guaranteed a tryout for some of the teams. So in Illinois, they were able to get a few test games, and it was a hit right away. Now, like any business, it's going to take some time to really get up and running. So the first season, 1987, but it wasn't until the year 2000 that the league really took off and it started growing like crazy, because in that year was the same year that Kurt Warner, who used to play in the Arena Football League, he ended up winning Super Bowl MVP. So now all of a sudden people are watching, right? What is this Arena Football League? What's going on here? And if you ever watch an Arena Football League game, they are exciting games. If you've been to one, they're also exciting events to go to. High action, fast pace, lots of scoring, lots of hitting. You're in a confined space. Very entertaining stuff. So the year 2000, bam, the league's taking off. A couple years go by, you get more expansion leagues. And then all of a sudden, yes, there was an AFL game before, but now you have EA Sports developing an Arena Football League video game on the PlayStation 2 systems. They made a total of 2 games, but that was really the all-time peak for the Arena Football League with 2005, 2006. They had at one point 19 teams in the league. So what happened? Where did the fall off occur? What happened to where? How did they kind of start that drought into where we are now? Well, it started at the end of 2008. So the season is over. But all of a sudden, one of their teams, the New Orleans Voodoo, they decide that we're ceasing operations. We're closing up shop. That is it for our team. So the question is why? Why are you guys leaving? What's going on? Well, the quote they said, this is the exact quotes. Make sure I read it so we are correct on this. Based on circumstances currently affecting the league. So what's affecting the league, right? Why are they getting out of this league that just 2 years ago was at the all-time high, at the peak of its fandom, I guess you would say? Well, it turned out that a couple weeks later, it was announced that the AFL will be selling $100 million of stake in the company to a company called Platinum Equity. And in exchange, Platinum Equity was supposed to create a centralized single entity business model that will streamline the league and help them become more profitable. So we don't know the exact terms of that, but clearly the owner of the New Orleans Voodoo wasn't really feeling it, right? So now you have this new $100 million partnership that's supposed to be taking place soon. Of course, they have to file all the paperwork and get this official. But at the same time, you have a team that is leaving the league. But that's fine. The AFL, they can continue to go on. So what did they do? They announced there will be a dispersal draft. Never heard of one of those before? I guess it's a draft because this league is closing down. Teams can then draft the players off this team that is leaving. So that was announced for December 2nd, 2008. So now we want to pay attention to these dates. December 2nd, 2008, that's the dispersal draft. And then unrestricted free agency will begin December 4th. for that league. Well, right before that draft was set to take place, they put out a press release announcing that they're going to have to wait a little bit. The draft's going to start December 3rd. Cool, one day, you don't never want to postpone something, but one day, fine, it's cool. Well, right before that day, they put out another report saying that we're going to have to now push this thing back to December 9th. Free agency will take place December 11th. All right, little odd, but cool, we'll wait for the draft. And then right before that date, they say, you know what, we're going to postpone this indefinitely. So people are looking around. Media members are looking around saying, whoa, there's no draft, free agency postponed indefinitely. What does that sound like to you? It sounds like they could be in financial trouble, and that's exactly what the rumors were. They were in financial trouble, and they were on the verge of folding. The then players union decided, hey, we'll even take off some of the salary cap. So we'll cut the salary cap a little bit if that means that the operations and everything can continue to go and we can continue to have a season. So that's what they agreed to cut the salary cap for the year 2009. But with all that said, then the investment equity, platinum equity, then fell through, and that didn't become a thing. So you don't get that money. You lost the team. You don't have a draft. You don't have free agency. Things are looking shaky going into the year 2009. So we're getting there, right? Early 2009, no owner is really comfortable at this point. I guess a lot of stuff is going on, so they decide that we are going to cancel the entire season of 2009. All the owners agreed to, and the reason why was to create a long-term plan to improve its economic model. So they get rid of the main Arena Football League, but since 2000 they had the AF2, which is their development league, right? Where they'll have players kind of come up and then they'll move, almost like Major League Baseball, right? You have your development team, or the G League, also like that too, right? So the AF2, which is the development league, they played in 2009, but the main league did not play in 2009. That's already kind of feeling a little bit weird, right? So we're getting through the summer, and then they announced that they are not going to be able to get a CBA done with the players union in time. And on top of that, they are going to eliminate all health insurance moving forward for the players. And you could work almost any full-time job, maybe not at certain startups, but basically any full-time job, you're going to get health insurance, let alone a physical labor job, right? If you're a construction worker, you're going to get some sort of insurance, right? You're in a football league, which is predicated on hitting somebody basically every play, and you're getting rid of the players' insurance. That's not a really good start. So then on July 20th, 2009, it was found out that the AFL owed $14 million to creditors. That means they were $14 million in debt. They don't have the cash flow to be able to pay this off. They're thinking about maybe filing Chapter 11 bankruptcy, maybe filing Chapter 7 bankruptcy, but they're still kind of being reluctant to file the bankruptcy, right? But the creditors themselves filed the paperwork to force the Arena Football League into bankruptcy. So they had to file Chapter 7 bankruptcy, which was granted, but then it was later converted to a Chapter 11 bankruptcy on August 26, 2009. So now the league is basically on his way out, right? He's basically on his way to fold. And now they're selling off all of their assets. And this is where things kind of get funny to me and interesting, right? So they're selling off, they're having an auction, they're selling off all of their stuff. Now the AF2, which was the development league, they are starting to organize and create their own league. So they do literally just that. So all of the teams that were development teams before to this main league are now in their own league called Arena Football 1, AF1. That is the league that they formed. And now they're looking at the auction from the Arena Football League, and the AF1 is like, man, we're going to buy a lot of this stuff. And they literally do just that. So The Arena Football League put up all of their assets on November 11, 2009 for sale, and they basically purchased almost everything. So they purchased team names, logos, of every team except for one team, and that was the Dallas Desperados, which was owned by Jerry Jones, right? You know, Jerry Jones never likes to follow the rules. He was the only guy that wasn't involved in that one, but they bought everything. So now they are rebranding from Arena Football 1 back to Arena Football League, and they are going to relaunch. And when they relaunch, man, they are getting a bunch of new teams and old teams coming back into the league, right? So they added the Dallas Vigilantes, the Jacksonville Shark, you have the Philadelphia Soul come back, Kansas City Brigade, San Jose Sabercats, the New Orleans Voodoo, one of the teams that left before, they're now coming back. The Georgia Force is coming back. So it looks like you're getting a nice stable of teams, right? You slowly keep expanding, and I think they could have expanded a little too quickly, but they started expanding, man. So 2012, they're adding a team in Tulsa, a team in San Antonio. In 2014, they're adding a team in Las Vegas. They're adding more and more teams as this thing really goes through. So with all this expansion, you would think these teams are financially doing well. Well, no, they are growing without really taking care of the franchises that are currently there, right? So you're adding all these expansion teams, but these teams are also dropping out quickly because in 2015, you had a couple of teams decide that we're going to leave. So the New Orleans Voodoo, right? Their season operations for a second time, they're done. The Las Vegas Outlaws, they literally just got there in 2014. They're done in 2015, right? So they were only there for a year. And then you had the Iowa Barnstormers, Tri-City Fever, Green Bay Blizzard, Arkansas Twisters, who all also filed bankruptcy between 2009 and 2015. So these teams they're not profitable. They're not making money. In fact, they're losing a lot of money, and teams are really regretting this decision. Then you have the Spokane Shock, another team in the AFL. They decided to leave and join the IFL completely. So you have an abundance of teams really just leaving the AFL because they're not making money. And then you have a lot of them just filing bankruptcy. And that really kind of gets us very close to the point that we are really now, because in 2016, the Orlando Predators and the Jacksonville Sharks, two other teams in the AFL, they decided to leave and establish their own league called the National Arena League. So they just left and competed directly with the Arena Football League, man. And now that's basically where we're at, man. Every team really left the AFL because they're not making money. AFL to me hasn't done a great job of taking advantage of that spotlight that they had. Like I said, 2006, you had video games made for you guys. You had a lot, but you guys made a lot of questionable decisions, man. And cutting health insurance for the players really that's not the best one either. But it's sad, man, because I really did enjoy the AFL. They came into the 2018 season with just 4 teams. That was financially doable for them, but then, like they've done in the past, they decided to add 2 more expansion teams, which of course never got off the ground because they are now season operation of all of the teams before the expansion teams even came in. They're looking into making this a travel league, which means all the teams, almost like the Big Three, if you watch that for basketball, all the teams will practice and then they'll fly to a certain city and they'll play their games at that city for that day, and it basically is like a tour. That's basically what the Arena Football League is looking into right now. We'll see. They currently have a media contract with ESPN to have their games on ESPN3. The Arena Bowl was on ESPN2. I don't know if that will be affected by this news that they are ceasing operations. Of course, we have the XFL coming out in the spring. We'll see if that's any more successful than the AFL that just kind of came and went. But historically, it's hard for any football league really to sustain. The AFL maybe was the best company to do it, and they did it for such a long time without falling off. But like I said, just making mistakes definitely hurt the league, man. And it's sad to see. And hopefully, you know, we can hear something by the end of 2019. Hopefully this is not it for the league. But you have to get your foundation right, man, I think, before you start expanding to all these different teams. And I think they want to be there so badly that they're just taking out a bunch of loans, getting all these expansion teams. I think at one point there was a Cleveland team that literally could not play because they didn't have a stadium, because Quicken Loans Arena was renovating for the Cavaliers game, so they didn't have nowhere to play, so then they couldn't play. This whole thing's been a mess, man, but that is where we are at this point. Sad, man, definitely sad. But you guys let me know, is it over for the Arena Football League? Can you see them competing? Are you interested in watching Arena Football League games if they're on? How do you think they're going to do, especially with the XFL now coming out? That could now kind of take, you know, that spring and summer over for a lot of football fans. They may be looking at the XFL now instead of the Arena Football League. But let me know, man, if you've been to games, how was your experience with the AFL? Let me know, man, because I'm definitely curious to hear you guys' opinions on this. For my opinion on it, man, I think they were going to try this travel league thing, but I think AFL, I think they're on their way out. I think they may be done in a few years. But let me know your guys' thoughts and opinions in the comment section below. I hope you guys did enjoy the video. If you did, please go ahead and leave this video a like. It helps me out a lot. Subscribe if you haven't already. It's your boy D Lloyd. I'm see y'all next time. Peace.